This is Leadership Beyond, your community of conversation.
But this is the first time in my professional career that everybody, 100% of us, are consciously aware we are engaged in the change initiative.
Yeah, everything. I mean, COVID caused us all to go through change, right? At the same time, but our experiences were so different.
Facing these unprecedented times in isolation is pure insanity. Joining us today is Falcon Napier. T is an internationally recognized human development expert specializing in sales, leadership, and change management. He's the founder of the Institute for Productive Tension, an organization that researches the role of productive tension in human performance. T is also the creator of the ChangeGrid, the world's only client-driven, activity-specific coaching and management tool.
In all the work that I've done in organizational change management, I've never thought of the power of tension in quite the same way until T explained it around his study of tension management and how productive it is in helping to lead people through change.
We are missing opportunities every day to help to engage people and influence them to be successful on change initiatives. Welcome, T. Napier. Good afternoon, T. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So excited to have you here today, T. Thank you so much. Why don't you start by sharing just a little bit about your background and what has brought you to the study of tension management?
Well, I've been doing this kind of work now for 45 years. And so when I started all this, I was living in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And at the time, back in the 1980s, all the rage was about peer group counseling, peer group consulting, so all this sort of stuff. And so I ended up getting attached to a couple of really large enterprises in the Ann Arbor, Michigan area. And what I recognized, even though I was really quite young, was that they were looking at something that was not fundamental to their movement forward. And so I started putting together a tool. And that tool is called the ChangeGrid. And today it exists as a wonderful tool for people that are involved in any attempt to influence other people, any change management initiative, and also anything that's happening at the individual kind of personal growth sort of level as well. So it kind of started with that little seed of confusion that I thought was happening in the world of business and evolved into what it is today.
As so many of the best tools do, right? Coming out of a necessity. Wonderful.
Yeah, so we came at it with a little bit of a different perspective too. I never saw as a joke, I'll just say this. I don't think the world needs another psychometric tool. I think we've got plenty of psychometric tools to choose from that do a really, really fine job, but they all tend to end in the exact same spot. They end with a question, and that question is, now what? Mm-hmm. So great, I'm a whatever and you're a whatever, and temperament and personality. Okay, yay, now what? Well, now what leads to a discussion of behavioral changes that someone needs to either make or at least move in the direction of, and that's where the trouble begins. So are people really ready to make these sorts of changes? Are they engaged in doing it? Do they have what they need to make it? So that's how this all ended up evolving into what it is today.
So I teed you up to say and teased the audience to say the words tension management.
Yes.
Can you define tension for us?
Sure. Let me first give you what the definition isn't. When most people hear the word tension, they immediately think of stress. So they think about tension sorts of headaches, and there's a lot of tension, and they seem to equate that in a certain way with stress. But we define tension in a much more, we feel, accurate and useful way. And so I'll give you two, maybe three of our little definitions of it. First of all, we define tension as being the level of physical, emotional, and intellectual activity a person's experiencing at any given moment in time. So if you've got a lot going on emotionally, a lot going on with your problem solving skills and your cognitive processes, that level of activity starts to raise your level of productive tension. So someone who has no physical, no emotional, no intellectual activity is, well, clinically dead, but nevertheless, they're very low on the tension scale. And we see a direct connection between tension and productivity. So as the level of tension goes up, the person's level of productivity also goes up to a certain point. Once the person's level of tension is so high that it reaches into true stress, then the level of productivity is going to take a nosedive. And so the real skill we're trying to teach is to help people, whether it's at a family situation or executives in the C-suite, they have to learn how to monitor and manage the level of productive tension that their employees are experiencing, or their prospects are experiencing, or their vendors, whoever it is they're trying to influence in one way or another. It's really all about tension management. One other definition I'll give you very quickly, and I think this is easy for people to visualize with their first exposure to tension, is I want you to imagine for a moment that you are holding a rubber band between your hands. And you're holding the rubber band in such a way that it's kind of drooping between your two fingers. Now, we would say that there's no tension in that rubber band. But a scientist could say, oh, no, there's tension there. We could measure it, but we'll just go like, there's not very much. As I pull the ends of the rubber band further and further apart, the amount of energy that is contained in that system, in that rubber band, goes up. The tension increases. The potential for something to happen increases. At a certain point in time, the level of tension inside of that rubber band is going to get so extreme that the rubber band is going to snap, unless I choose to weaponize it and point it in a particular direction and let it go. So we can use that tension, we can use that energy for either a productive outcome, a destructive outcome, or it could just fizzle out and just dissipate into nothingness. So we really do need to get good at monitoring and managing productive tension in ourselves, in others, and in the world around us.
We hear this said all of the time. People are resistant to change. Is that true?
Well, let's just say if it were true, we would no longer be here on the planet. The whole experience of being a human and watching humanity evolve over millennia is all a reflection of not only our willingness to change, but our skill at changing. So if we were lousy at change, or we were totally resistant to change, we would never have found better ways of doing anything, more secure environments, better ways of bringing food and shelter to safety to a family. Humans are not only not resistant to change, we happen to be really good at it. That being said, we still do encounter resistance. And so to me, the bigger question is not, is this whole equation accurate, but why are we looking at the wrong thing? So it's not change that we're resistant to. There's got to be something about change that we are ultimately going to resist. And I can answer that question if you want it. So
go for it, T.
Yeah, all right. So, all right.
What is it we resist?
What do we resist? We resist losing control. So when someone is making a change, you have to think about, why is someone changing? I mean, what's even driving it? Well, if you look at the momentum, the emotional driving force behind any change, it's that the person is examining the world around them and saying, this is not the way I want it to be. This is either too stressful for me. Maybe there's something threatening in the environment and I've got to find some way to control the threat that's coming my way. Or maybe It's just a routine thing. And I need to be able to have food and shelter and security and all that. And I need to be making constant adjustments to what is already working to ensure that it continues to work effectively. So we're looking for efficiencies. We're looking for, whatever, more of it is what we're really looking for. We also change because we see an opportunity, and we want to seize control of that opportunity while it's presenting ourselves. And I can provide examples of this using prehistoric behavior all the way up to modern day. It's something that's constantly playing itself out in the whole drama of human existence. And so nobody changes in order to lose control. You change in order to gain or maintain control. And so if someone is advocating that you make a certain change, and as you are evaluating that change, you kind of go, I'm not going to gain any more control if I do what they tell me to do. And I don't see how it's going to help me maintain control. In fact, I suspect that if I do what they're telling me to do, I'm going to lose control. Well, the smartest thing for you to do as a human being, as a critter in this case, is to resist that change. Why would you do it? It offers you no benefit whatsoever, and it could actually cost you something. So humans are not resistant to change itself. They're resistant to changes they believe will lead to them feeling out of control. We change in order to gain or maintain control. We will raise an eyebrow if we feel like we're already in control and someone's recommending something to us, but we will hear what they have to say, even if it's at a subconscious level, and mull it over and then ultimately be influenced by it, or do nothing around it. So I guess to bring that all to something that's meaningful, useful, practical for your audience, I would say to you that the very first thing they need to do whenever they encounter resistance from anybody, even from inside themselves, they need to stop and ask the question, how does someone believe they're going to lose control as a result of doing what I'm thinking they should be doing or what I'm advocating? I'm encountering resistance. They're not resistant to change. That's an excuse. They're resistant to losing control. I got to know the ways in which they think they will lose control so that I can position my recommendation, my advice, my product, my whatever, so that they view it as a way of enhancing their sense of control.
So how does understanding the dynamics of tension help people make changes they want to make and feel in control, even though there might be some inner turmoil in that control?
Yeah. Well, this whole battle about control, am I gaining control? Am I losing control, is constantly in play. And so we have a little tool we use that anyone who's listening to this can create on a scratch piece of paper. Anytime you are considering a change, there are 4 questions that arise in your brain that will ultimately tell you what the value equation is around this change. So first of all, you have to ask yourself, what do you hope to gain as a result of making this change? And make a list. I hope to gain this. I hope to gain that, blah, blah, blah. Second question, what do you hope to lose as a result of making this change? Sometimes people change in order to get rid of something that no longer serves them well. Sometimes they change.
26 pounds.
Yeah, well,
26 pounds.
But a lot of people, particularly, in fact, people that are out there working as consultants and trainers and coaches, kind of stop everything around. What do you hope to gain? For them, goal definition is all about, what do you hope to gain? What do you hope to gain? Well, I can help you gain that. And it's like, you are missing 3/4 of the information and haven't even touched the ones that can derail it. So going back to these 4 questions, what do you hope to gain? What do you hope to lose? The next 2 tell me what the cost involved is going to be. What do you not want to gain? And what do you not want to lose? It is in the answers to those 2 questions that the elements of moving into feeling out of control come into play. So yes, I would like to have advanced education, but I don't want to gain a lot of extra responsibility. I don't want to lose what little spare time I have right now. If I can't show you a way that you could gain that higher level of education in such a way that it does not bring you those things you do not want, and it does not take from you those things you don't want to get rid of, I have a much stronger value equation, much stronger value proposition that I can be making. And so I think it's really important for people to go into the change process, filling out a complete profile, if you will, of how this change is going to impact my sense of control. What's it going to bring me? What's it going to help me get rid of? What is it not going to cost me? What is it not going to bring me? And what is it not going to take away from me? So this is what you really have to be thinking about, these 4 different aspects of control. Once those are answered, it's interesting that now the leader, the manager, the counselor, the spouse, whatever, has a full picture of the work that lays before them if they want to get this person on board. And otherwise, we're just throwing thoughts, we're throwing, methods, we're throwing, maybe this will work, give them more money. But anyone who's been in this line of work long enough knows that throwing money at a problem does nothing to really treat the problem.
Well, Adrian, are you seeing some of these patterns emerge in some of your initiatives?
Yes, I'm thinking, oh, well, no wonder so many changes, organizational changes fail.
Yeah.
Right. And when I think about big organizational changes where you're trying to bring a group of people through a change, and yet it's such an individual response to that change. And as a change leader, how can I consider each individual's response?
Yeah. And then, interestingly enough, in their role as a true leader, and I'll define a true leader for you in just a moment, those things are not going to be as important as that next level down. So the people who actually have to now go and assign staff, supervise staff, monitor, develop them, supply them with whatever they need, that's where we end up with a whole lot of these work items being taken care of. So let me just rewind to what I was about to say about leaders. We have a leadership program that's all based in, everything we do is based on tension management. I have one subject around which 350 hours of intellectual property has evolved. So, and everything I do is going to get back to this one thing: pay attention, attention, pay attention, attention. And so I certainly have applied it to every aspect of soft skills inside of an organization, some hard skills as well. But nevertheless, when it comes to leadership, one of the things that I've always worked to correct, if you will, is that people seem to be very confused about what is leadership and what is management. And these two have become so commingled that in truth, the true skills of leadership have fallen by the wayside. And what we really have now in even university level programs in leadership is a whole lot of management skills, maybe taken to a very high level. I'm not saying it's not good education. I'm just saying, like, where'd the leadership part go? So let's talk real quickly about what leadership is in our humble way of looking at things. And that is, the unique skills of leadership are 5. Number 1, leaders have the ability to articulate a compelling vision. So when it comes to this change process, what I really need first and foremost is someone who can really articulate what this vision is. And it's got to be compelling. They need to get into my heart before they have a chance to get into my head. So I need that leader to be able to exercise skill number 1. Do you have the ability to articulate a compelling vision? The second thing is that, do you have the ability to awaken and sustain desire in the hearts of other people? So that's where the leader needs to now say, here's the vision and here's what's in it for you. This is how this is going to actually work for you in your roles at your level. This is why we're doing all this. And so they need to make sure that I'm being won over to that particular way of thinking. So again, the first one, they have to be able to articulate a compelling vision. The second is they have to be able to awaken and sustain desire in the hearts of other people. The third one is they have to be able to create and maintain an environment of pride. So when we are talking about tension management, we can associate specific emotions with each of the different levels of tension. So some are far more productive than others. There's unproductive levels of tension that we are always watching out for. So I need to make sure that my team, my followers, my whatever that audience is that I'm trying to influence, are feeling really good about themselves and what they're doing there, the impact they're having. And then on top of that, they're getting what they need and this vision is being met. This is what leadership is really all about. So for example, this idea about maintaining this environment of pride. If I'm a really good leader, and for whatever reason, the team that I'm working with has not met the objective, am I going to come in there and tell them that it's all their fault and they dropped the ball and they're bad, 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 bad? Is that going to awaken feelings of pride in someone? Or is that going
No.
to awaken the opposite, feelings of shame? And when I start to feel shame, I start to withdraw. And my level of control over my own destiny starts to go down, down, down. Now I'm in a very vulnerable situation. On the other hand, a leader who understands what leadership really is knows that everything that is wrong with this team can be fixed by everything that is right with this team. And so I need to get this team to, yeah, I get it. You know, we didn't meet the goal. We failed, whatever that word happens to mean. So there's a learning to be had. Let's make sure we learn that. But the first thing that we want to learn is everything that we did right. Everything that we have going for us, all of the talents that we have, all the skills, so that we can better prepare ourselves to be successful the next time we attempt whatever it is we're attempting. So that's 3 out of the 5. I'll stop there. There's 2 more, but those are the really important ones when it comes to tension management.
Well, we already have a need for a part 2 because we only have about 6 minutes left on part 1, if you're willing. But I have one more question, and Adrian probably has another question.
I have so many, but I can hold
So
them.
many, but we only get one because the clock runs out for us. This actually came about. One of our guests said, I've listened to your episodes and they're all over the map of how long they were. And we thought we need to establish consistency, because if we had Oprah coming in after us, we couldn't say, well, we got more questions to T. So we give ourselves a little, maybe 6-minute window, and we're getting better at that. But we always feel like there's more. And I don't want to waste the time talking because I got this question. You said there are already enough psychometric tools, and Adrian and I happen to be predictive index partners. And the ChangeGrid works very well with any good psychometric tool.
Absolutely.
But there's something that was implied, but what you said, but not specific. And I think it's the true distinguisher. You have said it's the world's only client-driven, activity-specific metric. And I haven't seen anyone disprove it. So I just want, in your words, why is activity-specific important? Because as opposed to just having a pizza and saying, you're woo, you're synergy. And then you say, now what? Go ahead.
Well, I think that when we look at psychometric tools, psychometric experiences, they all exist along a continuum. At one end, that continuum is highly researched, very grounded, proven in umpteen studies for umpteen years. And so people consider that to be like a standard in the whole industry. And so I guess depending on what your application is, there might be different tools that are considered to be the standard, the gold standard for all that. At the other end, we got parlor games. So we got fun little things like, one is like, if you were a race car, which race car would you be? And there ends up being 4 different race cars, or they want to know, what animal would you be? And there's 4 different animals, or, there's 4 houses in Harry Potter. Which house would you be sorted into? So there's a lot of things that are at the parlor game end of things. Well, what we said was, while it may be true that people have a personality, the truth is that in my role as a manager, as a coach, as a leader, as an influencer, while I appreciate the insights their personality gives me, I need to know, how do I work inside of that whole person to get them to change? So we want to know not so much about what you are all about, how you are, but how do you happen to be responding to this particular situation at this particular moment in time? I could generalize some things based on your personality, but why should I generalize when I can get highly specific data? And so the change grid is going to tell me in no uncertain terms at this activity specific level. And by the way, what Tom was pointing out was that most psychometric tools have a pre-formatted method for getting in to whatever the exercise is for you. They have answer these questions, choose among these phrases.
Right.
We don't do that. We just say, what do you want your people to do? What's mission critical? And we might debate a little bit about, is that really mission critical or is that mission incidental? What's truly, truly, absolutely essential for these people to get done? Now, let's put on the change grid. We'll answer some questions, but the real goal is what information do you get out of it? So you guys tell me, you're the leader, you're the manager, you're going through some sort of a change initiative of one size or another. And I say to you, it's great that you've learned what you can learn from the psychometrics. Now let's put this into motion. Let's turn it from a static tool into a dynamic tool. Let's apply it to what people are actually doing. And if you're willing to do that, I'm going to give you the answers to 4 questions. Tell me how important, how useful you would find these answers to be. Number 1, how ready is this person to actually do the task you want them to do? And readiness has to do with their level of knowledge and all that sort of stuff. The second thing, how engaged are they in doing it? Many people have tremendous levels of ability to do all sorts of things that they have no interest in doing whatsoever. So it's not enough to say, hey, they're ready, so nobody's got any excuses, go get it done. Well, I can give you a really big one. I'm not engaged. Maybe I was at some point in time, you lost me. And so my level of engagement also has to be taken into consideration. So I can tell you in no uncertain terms exactly how engaged each individual is at the activity specific level, and you pick the activities. The third thing, I can tell you how likely they are to actually follow through and get the job done. So, right. So I can tell you just by looking at a change grid, who's going to be on board quickly, who's going to lag behind, who's never going to adopt it. Again, so this is how ready are they to do it? How engaged are they in doing it? How likely are they to follow through and do it? And then the fourth question is, what type and level of support are they going to need in order to get them on track and keep them on track? And so we describe the change grid as the world's only client-driven activity-specific coaching and management tool. But we also say that perhaps the greatest thing about the change grid is that it is descriptive, it is predictive, and it is prescriptive. So we think that gives the user the full range of information they need. While most psychometric tools are predominantly descriptive, perhaps slightly predictive, because they could say in these pairings, X might occur, or they're going to be reluctant, blah, blah, blah. I want the developmental plan. I want the back end of that. What do I need to do to get this person on track and keep them on track? And it's all boils down to tension management. All boils down to tension management.
Boy, could I use that on some change initiatives.
Well, yeah, I mean, so what we have to say now, we got time for one more question. Adrian's going to ask it, but since we use predictive index, we can put the prescriptive in the predictive by using those two together.
This is right. So we've never felt that the change grid competes against anything.
Not at all.
It lives in harmony. We like to think of ourselves as being the natural next step in whatever the implementation plan around that psychometric, unless they were just doing it for, a team building kind of a thing or an insight experience. I figured they're spending all the money on the psychometric tool because they're trying to ultimately produce some sort of change. And they've recognized that personality or whatever is involved, and they don't want it to be a barrier so how do I work within that? Great. And
that's as far as they go with it usually, the now what, right?
Yeah, and I don't even put the expectation of the now what on them, because their intention was to be an extremely accurate and powerful description, offer descriptions, and perhaps a little bit of predictive sorts of things about how they might behave moving forward.
But I see that it gives you the insight of the support, right? Like in the change work that I do, without those kinds of metrics, individual metrics, we are guessing.
Of
We're
course.
doing the early work, the analysis of what's the change, what are they losing, what do they have to give up,
Right.
and then we guess what they need.
Yep. And so let me give you a real quick glimpse into that, how it actually happened. And so, Tom, you might remember this. When we do a ChangeWorks profile, there is no limit to the number of people who can be in the population. So obviously, the smaller the population, the more I can kind of do, I think, meaningful work. But if I'm a large organization, I just got to know, generally speaking, where do we need to put our real emphasis? So the ChangeGrid can serve you there as well. Well, one of the things that the ChangeGrid is automatically going to calculate is the averages. And so I can't begin to tell you how frequently we look at the results of a specific activity, and it's showing where every individual is plotting, and it's showing the average. And in truth, no individual is plotting at the average. So
It's
I'm
not
going
hitting
to
the mark
build,
for anyone.
right, I'm going to build a plan around this average that
Yeah.
doesn't even exist in the organization. So,
Yeah.
I mean, how's that going to play out? So, yeah.
Not well.
No, well, you know, going to be more money that needs to be spent. So,
Well, T, thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to have information on the show notes, and we're going to offer to the community to experience the ChangeGrid.
oh,
And we're going to ask you for a part 2 after we have.
sure, happy to do it. Happy
Tip
to
of
do
the iceberg. Yeah, we can dissect and some of the results would be really cool.
it. Yeah, excellent. Anytime you'd like, just let me know.
Thank you, T.
Thanks
You're
so
welcome.
much.
Take care. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Beyond podcast. We hope you benefited from this conversation as much as we have. We invite you to join our community of conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to sign up at aleadershipbeyond.com for free materials and updates. That's aleadershipbeyond.com. Join us in 2 weeks for our next episode.